All right. Hi, guys. Welcome to another podcast episode with Brock and I. Today, we are talking about dynasty running backs. So, we're going to talk about our top 5 free agent running backs upcoming this free agency period. And we're going to talk about our collective top 5 landing spots for those possible running backs based on open backfields at this current time. Hey, Brock. How you doing today?
Pretty good. How about you, Connor?
Pretty good.
Very
Um,
good.
do you have any opportunity to see anything from the combine this weekend?
I didn't see anything, but I mean, there was one guy that I was kind of interested in. I saw his I think he had a 4.40, something like that. But the receiver Rome Odunze, I think you say his name like that.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
I
Out
was
of Washington.
yeah. So I was pretty interested in him because obviously you got Marvin Harrison Jr. is most likely the first receiver to go. Um, but I'm definitely interested in Rome because I mean he's an outside receiver, plays the X position. He's big, strong. He's got great control in the air with his body when he's up in the air trying to grab the ball, make a play. He's got strong hands. He gets good separation from what I've seen in film and stuff, and from what I've heard and what I've seen online is that he's a good captain and a leader. So that's a good trait to have too. I do think that he probably could be a better run blocker, and also he could work on his route running a little bit. But I mean, being in the right system and having good coaching and being on the right team, all that stuff can improve. So I kind of see him as like a uh, Cortland Sutton kind of similarity.
Right. That makes sense.
Um, but yeah, that was the guy that I was kind of interested in seeing. Like I said, I think he had a 4.40 or something, which it's not
Yeah, I think
insanely
like
fast,
four,
but it's pretty decent.
4 or 5, maybe somewhere around
Yeah,
there.
something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. For a big guy, it's a good time though.
Mm.
Is there a team you like to see him on?
Um, I mean, he's definitely. I feel like he's definitely gonna go in the first round. He'll probably go in like the mid rounds. I feel like because all the quarterbacks are gonna push all the other talent back because there's gonna be 3, 4 quarterbacks going in the first 10 picks probably. Um, but as far as or a team, I don't know, maybe the Colts, maybe because I mean they got Michael. Well, they don't have uh him yet, but they're gonna probably re-sign Michael Pittman Jr. Um, but I mean, I feel like they might sign him, or maybe even if he drops all the way down to the Chiefs, but that's probably not going to happen. Um, but maybe also the Giants, maybe a possibility. But yeah, so those are a couple teams I think that might want to snag him.
Yeah, I
Anybody
don't
that
think
you
he'll
had
get.
interested?
Um, I was watching all the receivers on Saturday, so there was a bunch of standouts. Like AD Mitchell ran a lot faster than I thought he would. Um, he didn't look that good in the drills though, so everyone got real excited early on in the day, and then I kind of cooled off with them. And then I thought Roman Wilson, McConkey both looked really good, and I can see them squeezing in at the end of the first, most likely, maybe somewhere in the 20s. Um, so I'm expecting probably first round receivers. I think right now.
Uh,
So
Who do you
anyway,
think? Who do you? So it's obviously going to be Marvin Harrison first, right? So who do you think
yep.
is going to be the first receiver off the board after him?
I think Rome. I like Rome more than I like Neighbors, especially since Neighbors didn't even bother to weigh in or measure in. He might at his pro day, I'd hope, but he didn't test at all. He didn't weigh in. I mean, he's kind of a mystery at this point, other than his game film.
Mm,
So I think that the fact that Odunze went out there, worked out, did everything he was supposed to, and I saw some interviews with him on camera. Like you said, he seems like a good leader, a good guy. He could definitely, I think, jump Neighbors depending on the team fit and what you're looking for. Um, if the Chargers were to take a receiver at 5, which I don't think they will, I think either they'll trade back a few
yeah.
picks or they'll take like a lineman. I would think just because of Harbaugh. Um, they do, if they part ways with Mike Williams, maybe steps into that Mike Williams role and gets Herbert a younger weapon. So I would prefer that. I don't know if I want any
Yeah.
receiver really on the Giants. Everyone's going to obsess over the possible targets, but it doesn't really help if they're
Yeah.
nowhere near the guy. So
hmm But so now, do you think? So I hear more and more teams, their head coach, they don't really care about the combine. Do you think that that um what's his name? You said Neighbors didn't show up, right?
yeah,
Do you think that's really going to hurt him, even though the coaches don't really seem to care as much nowadays as they have in the past?
no, not necessarily. I think the thing with neighbors, I've heard this too. A lot of teams have neighbors, Odunze and Harrison, one, two, three in different orders. It may, depending on who's picking, flip uh, neighbors and Odunze. I don't think Harrison's going to get moved, but
Yeah.
maybe that's like a deciding factor. Maybe just because I don't know, size matters, scheme fit obviously matters, but some teams may value the fact that he did take that chance to go out there.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. So, okay, so I guess on to the top five running backs. So we want to start with number five.
Sure, let's do that.
So, okay, so for me, I had Austin Eckler. Um, I feel like I can see him going to um, kind of not as great of a team, maybe like the Panthers. I feel like the Panthers are going to want to pair somebody with um, either Miles Sanders or Chuba Hubbard, depending on who they decide to go with, because both of those they didn't really seem to have as great of a year as I thought they were going to. So maybe if they get somebody with more talent than them, which would be an Eckler, maybe if you pair both of them together, take some of the workload off of them, maybe that'll be good for both of them. Um, but I also see possibly maybe if he wants too much money and other teams aren't willing to pay him, which we have seen in the past, teams aren't willing to pay running backs what they're asking for. I can almost see him holding out and then waiting for a team to get an injury, and then he's like, "Hey, I'm here," and then but I'm asking for this much. You're desperate. You need a running back. So I feel like I can kind of see him doing that. Um, but I mean, he definitely declined a lot last year. Whether or not it was because of his ankle injury, who knows? I guess we'll have to see. He can still produce for sure. It's just he's not that clear number one workhorse like he has
Right.
been in the past. But yeah, so that was my number five.
I have Eckler at 5 as well. Did you see that the Panthers GM came out and said that they're going to roll with Hubbard as running back one?
Really?
Yeah, he said that
Oh
like
no, I
the
didn't see that.
presser at the combine. But I,
Okay,
I like your idea of like pairing them up. So Chuba isn't the best pass catcher, which is cool because that matches up
which
with Eckler
obviously
really well.
Austin Eckler
Yeah.
is.
And Miles Sanders, like since his rookie years, has declined at pass catching. He's been terrible. So
Mhm.
that makes a lot of sense. The only concern I'd have is the money they'd have already committed in Sanders because Sanders got a pretty good contract
Yeah.
last year. Frank Reich paid him pretty well and then got fired. So um, that's kind
Do
of
you
my.
think they would cut Miles?
I don't know what the penalty is on that. I didn't look, but say they did and they brought Eckler in. Eckler would be good because their line isn't that great. And I mean, other than Thielen, they didn't really have like a quick dump off option
Yeah,
on the
yeah.
offense last year to protect Young a little bit.
I was gonna
So
say
I
that
think,
probably would have helped Bryce Young a
yeah,
lot last
yeah,
year.
but that could be an interesting fit. I could even see him going to like the Rams. So the Rams are one of my landing spot teams.
hmm
You know, pairing him with Kyron, they kind of have the same size. I think Kyron's a better rusher, but kind of overlapping skill sets. And I think he's already in LA. Maybe wants to stay or whatnot, but it'd be
Yeah.
an interesting fit. I think McVay could use him pretty well.
hmm So number four for me, I have Derrick Henry. I believe I think he's going to go to probably the Ravens, um, just because I feel like they need one of those ground and pound guys, someone who will stay healthy. And Henry's stayed pretty healthy for being. I think he's now 30 years old or maybe 29 or something.
Yep.
But he's definitely old, which is kind of why I have him at number four, just because of the age for me. He's definitely still a guy that inside the five, you want to give him the ball. Because like I said, he's a ground and pound guy. He can score a whole bunch of points for you in fantasy, whether it's touchdowns or sometimes he goes off on a 80-yard run or something like that. But yeah, he's old, but still got a few years in the tank, I feel. So that's why I got him at my number four.
So I got Henry at 3, and I agree with a lot of the
Okay.
points you made. Like he to me is like I call him all reliable just because he can handle such a large workload and still be an elite starter even with all this wear and tear on his body at this point.
Mhm.
Um, the other thing too is he's going to get guaranteed goal line work. Like if you're going to
Oh,
sign
yeah.
Henry, he's going to be on the goal line. He's going to be punching touchdowns, and as long as a team can get down there, no matter what team. So I consider that when I ranked him at 3, just because of that like baseline scoring ability. Say he might be locked in for 8, 9, 10 touchdowns a year for the next
Yeah.
couple of years.
Mhm.
Almost imagine him on like the Lions if they didn't have Montgomery, like playing that
Oh,
Jamal
wow.
Adams
Yeah.
role. You know what I'm saying? Like, he'd just be
Yeah,
plunging in nonstop. So
for sure.
I have him at 3 for that reason, and I agree with you. Going to the Ravens would be a great fit, especially because Gus Edwards is a free agent, and also they tried trading for him, if you remember at the trade deadline. So there's some
Oh,
mutual
last year,
interest
yeah,
there.
yeah.
Yep, yep.
And I feel like he'd be a good role model or whatever for who's the rookie they had last year that got injured at the end of the year.
Oh, what the hell is his
Oh,
name?
Kyron Mitchell,
Keaton
right?
Mitchell. Keaton Mitchell.
Or yeah, Mitchell. Yeah, Mitchell's
Yep.
his last name. Yeah, whatever his first name. But I feel like he'd be a uh, good guy to show him the ropes, teach him everything. I mean, because he's obviously been a great back for many, many years, and could probably learn a lot from him. So that'd be a good
Yeah.
opportunity.
Yeah. The Ravens are always signing just good players, so
Mhm.
makes sense.
Hopefully he won't catch the injury bug like pretty much every Ravens running back has had.
Yeah, and I think they also between Mitchell and Hill didn't do a bad job either. They can probably, third down wise, they have two good pass catching speed backs. I guess you'd consider both of them,
Yeah.
some
Which
kind of
I
stat
guess,
back.
which I guess that is kind of the downside of Henry is that he's not really a threat for any screen passes or anything like that. So that'd
Right.
be good, like you said, for Hill and the other guy, Mitchell, to get those passing opportunities.
Yeah, that's why I think they're having the ability to score in that offense because they will get down to the goal line. And like Lamar really isn't like Hurts. He's not running sneaks, so
Mhm.
you can pretty much pencil in Henry for a lot of those carries.
Yeah. So then, who did you have at four?
I had Pollard.
Okay.
So I put Pollard at 4 because um, he also didn't look that great last year, but I think he was partially still recovering from that lower leg injury, and then he kind of started turning up a little bit for like the last month or so. Still
Hmm.
not to what he was before, but a pretty good level. Definitely a serviceable starter. Um, the other thing too is like he's a good pass catcher. I think he's more
Yeah.
efficient when he has like a lighter workload. You can
Oh
keep
yeah, for
him,
sure. Yeah.
around 15 touches rather than like the 20-25 mark and put him as like a change of pace or like a 1A to a 1B kind of backfield. I think you can get more out of him. Really, Dallas didn't really have a good backup for him. I mean, they had
No.
guys that just kind of sucked up carries and ran up the gut and stuff like that. No one was really even close to his skill level. Also, I don't know if they'll bring him back. I could also see him going back to Dallas if he took like a team friendly deal. I don't
Mm.
know if they will though. I just feel like they kind of still like him, but I think as a change of
Yeah.
pace back, he'd be someone to take a look at. I also think he again fits an offense where he can be a pass catcher, kind of be deployed in different ways and used differently. So
Yeah.
um, teams like the Chargers, I'm pointing out the Rams. I think the Rams are going to bring another running back in with Kyron. I don't know through the draft or free agency. Not like an elite back,
Yeah.
maybe, but someone to kind of take some work off of him just a little bit.
I feel like
Um,
they would draft because knowing Sean McVay's style and what he wants to do, he does not want to pay a running back. So I feel like they'd probably draft, or like you said, get somebody in free agency, not a star player, for real cheap.
yeah. The only thing that was confusing was they were in all the rumors for Jonathan Taylor last year, but that was
Oh,
before
really?
Kyron played so well. So I don't really know what to think of that. I mean, the Rams, I feel like they're always looking for like high level players and are in trade rumors, but
Mhm.
I'm not sure. Then I was thinking also the Vikings. So the Vikings could pair
Yeah,
him up in the backfield with whoever they want to use at this point. They have a bunch of average backups, and kind of make that work. And that's also a high scoring offense if they have Cousins or another capable starter with all the weapons they have on the outside. So um, I could see him fitting in there too because he kind of has like that a little bit of juice like Cook did when
yeah.
he was at towards his peak. So.
Do you think that if he were to stay in Dallas, that they would bring somebody else in from free agency, or do you think they would draft?
I think they would draft someone like round 4, get one of these rookie running backs like in I don't know that first or second tier of the draft. But
Do you
a lot
think
of
they'd still
reports are
have him
saying,
as the workhorse then?
yeah, I could see him being more the feature guy. Kind of use him a little bit more than he did with Zeke, but not as much as last year. And I think
Yeah,
you'd get someone a lot better than Rico Dowdle in
Dowdle
there.
something. Yeah,
Yeah, Rico. We're going with Rico. So
yeah.
anyone better
There
than
you
Rico?
go.
Rico was okay, but I think you could get someone better than that for sure.
Mhm. Yeah. So yeah, I had Pollard at my number 3, and yeah, pretty much everything you said. Yeah, he definitely declined a little bit last year. He wasn't able to really be in that workhorse number one running back guy. Um, but like you said, probably was because of his injury. He was still working. He was working through it a little bit. Came out a little strong towards the end of the year. But I think I got him at number 3 just because of his uh, pass catching ability and also his age. He's 4 years younger than Derrick Henry. Um, he can still make plays. I feel like he'd be a good RB2 on your fantasy team. He's not. I don't think anymore. He's a RB1 just because of how he was last year as a RB1.
Yeah,
Um, but I do also feel like it depends on um, the team he goes to. Like if he stays with Dallas, I feel like he's not going to be the the guy who gets the majority of the carries. I feel like last year was kind of a sign for Dallas. Like, okay, we got to bring in somebody else with good talent that we can split carries with Pollard, so that he stays fresh. The other guy himself can stay fresh, and then I feel like that'll kind of hurt him a little bit
yeah,
because he's not going to get a lot of the workload. Um, so that's why I have him not at 3 and not at 2. But uh, but yeah, I think he'll stay in Dallas, but just not have as big of a workload.
got it. Yeah, I can definitely see that happening. So who'd you have at 2 then?
I had Josh Jacobs.
Okay.
He he's a workhorse. I'd say he's like a mid-range pass catcher. He's
Mhm.
not like elite at it, but he's not like low like Derrick Henry is. I say he's in the middle of that. He's I think the same age as Pollard, 26. But so he uh so of the top of these top 5 uh backs that we're talking about, he's he's the same age as Pollard, but I think he's a better back than Pollard. So he's the youngest out of all of them. Well, I guess tied for the youngest with Pollard, but so that's why he's higher because for me, because he's younger and a better back than Pollard.
Yep.
But and so that gives him more years of producing at a higher level. He has had a little bit of injuries the past couple years, so that's a little bit concerning. I think he'll stay with the Raiders. Um, they're I guess they've had some talks um, about trying to extend him, and they just haven't really come to a agreement yet. But I feel like they will eventually. I feel like Antonio Pierce will want to keep uh, a tough guy like that is a ground and pound guy that I think he actually fought through a few injuries last year, so I feel like he'll want a guy like that. And I feel like he'll stay with the Raiders.
So I have Jacobs at 1, and I agree with a lot of the things you said. The only thing is, I think he's actually younger than you said. I think he's only 25.
Oh,
He came in the
25.
draft.
Okay.
If he came in the draft at like 20, so I think he's actually on this list probably like 2 years younger than everyone else.
Okay. Which
And
so that would make him even
yeah,
more valuable for
I
Dynasty.
think it's
So
nicer because it might will allow him to take a deal that's a year longer, but help his cap hit for a team. So like he may be able to go to a better team because they can afford to stretch that out a little bit.
mhm.
So I could totally see him ending up on a team like the Texans or the Chargers, where like they're going to want to run the ball, and he can definitely fit the system. I mean, I think the
Mhm.
Chargers might just take, um, oh, what's his name? The kid from Michigan,
Oh yeah, yeah, I know. Well,
Corum. I just
that
blanked. Corum, yeah, Corum.
that would probably
So
make sense because they just got Harbaugh as their
yeah,
coach, so
if you think
he
about it, I mean,
knows
Jacobs
him.
is a little bit of a different player, but Corum and Jacobs are kind of similar in that regard. Where I could just see like Harbaugh's just if he can't get Corum, he may go after someone like Jacobs, that someone's
Hmm.
younger, got that 3 down ability. He's like an elusive runner, doesn't have elite speed or anything like that, but he'll run through people, and that's kind of how Corum
Yeah,
plays. So,
yeah.
um,
So he was your number one, you said, Jacobs?
yeah. So I think you probably
Okay.
have Saquon 1, right? We're probably
Yeah,
flipped it.
yeah, yeah.
Yep. And
So yeah, Saquon. Um, yeah, I got him at number one. So I feel like he's a medium risk, high reward as far as fantasy because obviously of the injury bug. But if he stays healthy, he'll definitely get you a whole bunch of points. Obviously a elite pass catching back. Um, Last year I looked and he averaged almost 4 yards per carry last year with the Giants and their absolutely terrible offense. So
mhm.
I found that pretty amazing. And imagine if they got a good line and actually good weapons, if like what he could have done last year. Um, but I feel like if they get some good pieces, the Giants because I feel like he'll either stay with the Giants or I actually think he could go to Houston.
I
Um,
was seeing a lot of that, like him and
yeah.
Stroud are talking about it or something like that.
So yeah, because I saw that and I'm like, oh, that I feel like he'd actually be a good fit there. Um, but I feel like if he does stay with the Giants, if the Giants get a couple good pieces, figure out their offense a little bit, I think he'll have a great year again. Um, because last year he actually did have a pretty good year himself. Obviously, the team didn't, but um, I feel like they just have to kind of build around him. They were trying to build around Jones, their quarterback, but I feel like you can't really do that. You're trying to well not they're not trying to, but they are wasting his talent. And I feel like they got to start building around him if they really want him. They got to do that. So
I really think they're gonna
yeah,
go pass catcher like round 1. So it's gonna I mean, it can help open up some running lanes, but I think it's gonna compound the problem that they have on the line because I don't trust them to be able to fix that necessarily. And also, I just think whoever's under center is not that great, and I'm concerned Saquon's gonna stay there because they're familiar with him. They're probably gonna end up paying him a decent amount of money, and he's gonna be kind of stuck in this spot of mediocrity. I mean, he hasn't really been that good since his rookie year, even when he's been on the field. I'm excluding the fact he's been hurt a lot.
yeah.
So that's my biggest concern with him. That's why I put him at 2. I could see him being like you're saying. You were kind of talking about a lot of longevity and a lot of your points. So I think because of his athletic ability and his age too, and the workload he's had because he has been banged up. He hasn't taken a lot of carries. Out
Mhm.
of like Henry, Pollard, and Eckler, he's going to last longer. But I think Jacobs, his like style of play, puts him at an ability to play a little bit longer, and he's more consistent. He doesn't have the same ceiling, but you can rely on him to kind of be that good RB2 for your team,
Yeah.
low end RB1. Where like Saquon to me is a boomer bust player, and I don't really like building my teams around with those people unless I have a good baseline otherwise.
Yeah.
And I don't want to pay the premium to get him because of the name value. Like name value alone
Mm.
between all these guys, Barkley is number one, but I don't think on paper what his output is close. Well, it's not close, but consistently with these guys.
Yeah, I feel like for me, I feel like Saquon and Jacobs could have been flip-flopped. Because like you said, he has extremely high ceiling, but like you said, he's got a big risk with him. But then Jacobs, like you said, is more consistent. Now, for me personally, I think Saquon's I think it's I personally would think it's worth the risk for Saquon. Um, but that's just me. I could eventually get screwed over by that. Um, but yeah, so now we want to talk about the top five teams that need running backs.
Yeah, I kind of been bringing some of them up, and so have you. But we
Yeah,
can go
same.
through.
Yeah. Um,
So, who's your number? Let's start at one. Who's your number one team?
number one. I think the Ravens.
Okay, that's what I
They
figured.
definitely need a running back. And like we both agreed, Henry would be a good fit for them. Um, he just wants to win. And they already have a great team. Um, they probably if he was on their team last year, they probably could have had a good chance of beating the Chiefs.
Yes.
Um, so with that,
Yeah, I
yeah, they'll
like their
definitely,
commitment to the run as a team. So,
yeah.
and
I
they've
feel like
been.
they'll still draft somebody later on,
Yep.
like one of the last two rounds or something, just to add some young depth. Because obviously Henry being 30, like he's not going to be on the team for more than 1 or 2 years. But
Yeah.
yeah,
Who'd you have at two?
I had Chargers
I
just
did as well
because,
again.
yeah, because I don't think they're going to re-sign Eckler. And then, like you were saying, Harbaugh, I don't think they're going to get a big name guy for their first to like start at running back for them. I think they're going to draft somebody out of college with Harbaugh just coming from college, getting fresh eyes to see who he actually thinks their talent will translate to the NFL. Um, I did look to see how much cap space they have, and it looked like they were on like 25 or so. So I I just think that they're going to want to spend on other things, like probably more on the defense.
Yeah.
Um, so I that's why I think they'll draft at running back and not get somebody in free agency.
If they cut Williams, does that change your mind?
They cut
Mike Williams.
like change my mind for what?
If they're good, so I think it opens up like 20 mil. So you add 20 mil to their cap space. Would that change your opinion?
Oh, on to get somebody in free agency as a running back.
Yeah. Yep.
Um, yeah, I mean, I'd really only want them to get one either Saquon Jacobs or Pollard, just
Yeah, I don't
because.
remember when Harbaugh was the coach of the Niners. I don't know if he had a backup to Gore.
I mean, if he did, it wasn't anybody anybody special since we can't remember them, So,
Yeah, I'm gonna keep talking. I'm gonna look it up.
um, but so then I had the Panthers at three, um, and I think, like I said earlier, I think they'll try and get Eckler. Like I said, they'll be looking for someone to pair with Sanders or Hubbard. Give Bryce Young another weapon. I think you were saying that they didn't have somebody to kind of like for him to dump the ball off to if he doesn't have any options, so that would definitely help him. And I feel like he'd be a cheaper option, but still with like above average talent.
Mhm.
Um, so he's definitely a risk because he's on the decline of his career. But I feel like so I saw that they were 36 mil over the cap. They had that much space. But I feel like if they get Eckler on a cheap deal, that gives them more room to spend elsewhere. So then they don't have to break the bank on one of these big weapons, and they can get Eckler, who's still a serviceable back, and they can get other weapons, whether it's offense, defense, or a better line or something.
My only concern, I don't have the Panthers in my top 5, is when it comes to fantasy, I wanna put my running back in a good offense. So, at this point, with what they have on paper, I don't really trust that they're gonna be like a top 15 offense in the league, top 20.
Yeah.
So at 3, I put the Texans. I think the Ravens, Chargers, and the Texans are kind of in their own tier when it comes to offensive output, with opening on paper right now at the running back position.
Okay.
I expect the Texans to stay committed to the run like they were, and if you could put a better back than Devin Singletary back there, at least someone with a higher like athletic profile,
Yeah.
I would expect them to be able to tear it up a little bit. Um,
Now he was actually coming on pretty strong last year, Singletary.
yeah,
You think that was
exactly.
just a fluke or
No, I think that's a lot of it. He is a solid player, but I think if you could put a better player in that spot, like imagine
mm,
Saquon in that offense with his athletic ability, his talent, trying to run the same thing Singletary is doing with that scheme, I would expect him to, be 20% better than Singletary was at
yeah.
least.
Now what about Pierce, their other running back? Do you think he'll be their running back too then compared to whoever they get?
I think so. Yeah, I mean he's a solid player. I don't think he's anything special, but he's on a rookie contract, a later round contract too. So he's like free labor. I mean, why would you want to replace a decent depth piece that's so cheap for no reason?
Yeah, all right. So um and then so I had Minnesota at 4 um because they just cut Alexander Madison.
Yep.
Um and then I think Cam Akers, even though he's injured, but I think he's a free agent, so they don't have him. I think their only running back under contract is Ty Chandler, right? So I think that they're definitely gonna. I feel like they'll draft. They might draft round one. You don't know. I mean, I feel like I feel like a a good running back on the Vikings would be pretty good because I mean they already got pretty good receivers. Um, and I think I heard that they would be interested in signing Kirk back, but at a cheap at a cheap contract.
Yeah.
Um, so I mean, if they got him back, there's some they're pretty they got good chemistry. Obviously, him and Jefferson and Osborne and I'm blanking on the other guy. Their rookie last year.
Addison.
Yeah, Addison. Yeah, yeah. So
Yep.
they had some good chemistry. They'd be familiar with the offense, all of them together. And then to have a um one of the top running backs out of the draft along with them, I feel like that would be good for them.
Yeah, I have them at 5, and I
Okay.
agree with a lot of things you're saying. I think that's a good offense. I like O'Connell. I like O'Connell's system. Again, it's like one of the McVay guys. So think, I don't know if they go round 1. I don't even think there's a running back probably worth round 1 capital in the real draft, but round 2 maybe,
Mhm.
maybe in round 3, whatever. But
Are they
there's
are they middle or like more towards the bottom of the
they're
draft? I
like
forget.
pick 12. So
12? Okay.
yeah, they like
So
they would
yeah,
have been top 5, but they
maybe
traded for
not.
that guy with alopecia.
So yeah. Oh, Josh Dobbs. Yeah. So yeah,
Yeah.
I guess maybe not round one. I guess I didn't realize they were that low. So yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I think I would agree with you then. Then probably round two.
Yeah, they're probably gonna end up taking, I don't know, some defensive player or something like that. But so at 4, I had the Rams. And like I was saying, I think the Rams are gonna want to look for another running back. I think they have a good offense. They rebounded last year, and
Mhm.
Williams got a bunch of work. So even if you take a little bit away from him, put another back in the system, he's still going to do really well. And I think there's enough to go around. Um, the downside of that is though Williams is there, so like the upside, whoever goes there is limited. But again,
Yeah.
I'd rather have a player in an elite offense, and especially if something happens to Williams again, he's had some ankle injuries the last couple of years. If that happens, then you have a good player and an elite offense, hopefully again, and then you have that upside. And you kind of know the pieces there already, rather than the Vikings where you have the unknown at the quarterback position. That was my deciding factor.
Now, do you think that um, with the Rams, if they do draft somebody and they come in and start producing, do you think that could take enough carries away from Williams that he isn't like a RB1 anymore, or do you think you don't think he'll get that many carries taken away?
Um, I think what you would have is you could have possibly like a low end RB1, high end RB2, and maybe a pair like that even, because they do have such a commitment to the run game, and I think that
Yeah,
helps keep the pressure off of Stafford and opens up their play action a little bit because then they can run those crossing routes and stuff like that. So it, I think you have a lot of work there for both running backs, and I
because
would
he's
expect it.
kind of more of he is kind of more of not more of a receiving back, but like I would say he's like a Josh Jacobs, like middle tier, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So
Yeah, the other thing too is he was, I guess, from statistics I've read, like the worst pass catching, or sorry, not pass catching, pass blocking running back last
oh.
year. So I could see them getting. I don't know with prospects in the draft. Like I don't know who's a good pass blocker at this point. But if there's one that is in, that top first tier, maybe the second tier, who's a good all around player, that's a good pass blocker, I could see them bringing him in. Or they may
Mhm.
just roll some bums off the couch, like did it with Anderson a couple of years ago, and they just
Yeah.
have him if they need it, kind of thing. So,
Mhm. And then at five, I had Houston. I think you said you had him at three, right?
yep,
Um, but yeah, I agree with pretty much everything you said. I mean, just to have one more guy for Stroud that can make plays that'll just help him so much more. And they're 70 mil over the cap. Well, not over the cap. They have 70 mil uh room that they can spend. And so
yep,
that definitely gives them a lot of uh chances to sign high-end players. Like I was saying, I think uh they could sign Saquon, and that'd be great for them because right now they definitely need more of a or they need a running back more than a receiver. I do think they'll add another receiver, whether it's late in the draft or like a like a low tier free agent. Um, but as far as running back, I definitely think they'll try and sign somebody at the top.
yeah, I agree with that. All right, so I got one last question for you. A little bit of a kick the tires on this, but let's say Mixon gets cut. Do you
Ooh,
put
okay.
Mixon in your top five?
Um, that's tough. I think him or Eckler could be interchangeable. I mean, I guess it depends. I guess it depends what team he goes to. Because if he goes to a team like I don't know the Patriots, I don't think they would sign him because they already have Zeke and Stevenson. But I'm just trying. That was the first team I could think of that I don't
Yep.
think would be a good fit at all. But if he goes to a team that isn't a good fit, then no, I wouldn't have him in my top five. But if he goes to a team like the Rams, maybe if he goes to the Rams, then yeah, I think I'd probably swap him out for Eckler then.
Okay. Yeah, I agree too. I think so. I think he's got a better all around skill set. So,
Mhm.
yeah.
So, all right, well, that's our top five running backs for this free agent class, and then top 5 teams that need running backs. Connor, you got any last final words?
No, I don't have anything else to really add. This was a good time.
Yeah. All right. Well, tune in for next episode of Championships Podcast. Thanks for listening.
Yeah, next time we will be talking about trades, I believe.
Yep. That is that is what it is.
Cool. Thanks, everyone. Be sure to subscribe and like this video.